Hi coaches, welcome to Mental Training 30. My name is Lindsey Wilson, co-founder of Positive Performance, and remember, every day this month I am giving away my best tips, tricks, and techniques to help you coach your athletes to their highest and best performance. And today I'm going to share this really interesting little technique that I actually just learned about a few months ago, and I did it myself, and then I started doing it with my clients, and I noticed that this stupid little silly technique is actually really effective. And I call it the thing technique. There's probably a more scientific description, but I call it the thing technique. Now, let's get into exactly how to do this. So what I want you to do is I want you to think of some sort of barrier that you have in your life. And I'm going to take you through what I do with my athletes and what I would do with you if you're my client, and because I think that's the best way to learn it. And then I'm going to talk to you about the research behind it, okay? So think of a place in your life that you have some sort of barrier. So typical barriers are fear, self-doubt, anxiety, negative thoughts, negative self-talk, limiting thoughts. You get the idea. Stress. Fear is a great one, and the reason that this technique helps so much with something like fear, would help your athletes as well, is because oftentimes stress, fear, anxiety is so far inside of us. You know, like sometimes you wake up on a Monday morning and you're crazy stressed and you're not exactly sure why. Is it because you feel like you have too much to do? Is it because the weekend's over? Or is it because of something going on in your life or something else going on in your life? And sometimes you're just kind of walking around with this vague, or maybe not so vague, anxiety or stress. And it's hard to know how to deal with it because you don't even know really where it's coming from. And sometimes you're not even aware of it. You're just sort of not in a great mood. So fear and stress and anxiety and those sorts of things, they work that way, and they get sort of inside, and it makes it really hard to deal with them when they're like that deep inside of us. Okay, so I want you to think about this thing in your life. Let's go with like fear, stress, anxiety, because that's gonna cover like 90% of the issues that we deal with, even with athletes. So let's think of fear, okay? Let's just label it fear. So what I would do is we would sit down and I would say, okay, coach, now, this fear that you are feeling, and I want you to just go through this with me, okay? I know it's silly, I'll explain more. This fear that you are feeling, where does it live in your body? Like if you could identify where in your body it resides, where would that be? Just take a second and think about that. So let's say that you said it's in your chest, okay? So it's in your chest. Okay, so your fear is in your chest. Does your fear have a shape? If it had a shape, there's no right or wrong answer here. If it had a shape, what would the shape be? Okay, just think about that for a second. So let's say it's like a circular blob thing. That's what one of my clients said last week. It was like a circular blob thing. It was like kind of different shaped, like Play-Doh or something. Okay. So it's in your chest, it's kind of this weird Play-Doh shape. Does it have a color? Does your fear have a color? What would that color be? Again, no right or wrong answer. So this client, it was a swimmer actually, he said that his color was red. His shape, his blob thing was red. So his fear is red. Does it have a taste? He said his didn't, but sometimes people think of a taste. What would it taste like if it had a taste? Again, no right or wrong answer. Does it have a smell? Can you think of your fear? Does it have a smell? So for him, he said it was sort of like a bitter, sour smell. I know this is a little woo-woo, but it works. Just trust me. Okay, taste. Does your fear talk? Does it say things? Yes or no? Okay, for him, it did. When it talks, what kind of things does it say, or what kind of tone is it? And for him, and I want you to think about this, what does your fear say to you? His was very judgmental and negative and Yeah, just not very nice, essentially. And then the final question is, make sure I got all of them. What is your fear's name? You get to name it. Okay, so my client last week, he named his fear Bobby. In his chest, it was red, it had kind of a sour smell, it was very judgmental in its tone when it talked to him, and so that worked for him. So hopefully you've taken yourself through this exercise. If you haven't, I definitely encourage you to. Now, what does this silly, stupid little exercise actually do? And this is what it does, and this is what the research supports. Essentially, fear, stress, anxiety, all these like negative emotions, many of them come from our amygdala, which is the fear center of our brain. It gets activated by things that are important and things that we just perceive to be important. It's the reason we feel stressed in traffic, or we feel stressed about our bills, or we feel stress in a fight or flight response about a conflict that we have, or a conflict that we may possibly have in our life. So all these things are in our amygdala telling us that we need to pay attention, and it's fight or flight, and some are, again, important and some are not. But what this exercise does is it takes your fear, your stress, your anxiety, and it brings it up from the subconscious amygdala into your conscious brain. Now, our conscious brain, if you've been following along or if you've done any research yourself, is the place where we can actually rationalize things. Our subconscious mind does not think in rational thought. So you can't really argue with your subconscious mind, and sometimes you don't even know what's going on in there a lot of times, so you can't argue. But when we bring it to our conscious brain, and this is what my swimmer did last week, he said, oh, okay, so Bobby's here. Bobby, my stress fear friend, is here, and it's just Bobby. And so it's bringing it into his conscious brain, and when you bring it into your conscious brain, you can then say, okay, the stress that I'm feeling about, going to college and the recruiting process, because that's a lot of what he's stressed about. Some of that is really rational, it's stressful, and it's okay to be stressed about that. But some of it is not, and some of it is not helpful. So Bobby is interfering a little bit in this sense because I'm feeling too much stress about this. I can't control everything. And so you see how this, bringing Bobby to the forefront of the conscious mind, then you can deal with the stress. You can think about what's actually stressful and what's being layered on just because your amygdala got activated. And you can really have that conversation and that perspective, and you can say, oh, this is Bobby. Bobby's not exactly rational. Bobby is fear for me. And Bobby, shows up, and I don't have to listen to everything that Bobby says. Bobby's very judgmental. It's not the truth. It's just Bobby being Bobby, and that's his job. And so it sounds so silly, I know, but having that conversation with yourself then allows you a little bit more control over your fear, over your stress, over your anxiety, because it's in your conscious brain. And so you can argue with it. You can rationalize through it and really figure out what part of that stress or fear is rational and what is not rational. And that, again, is a feeling of empowerment and control. It can make huge changes in your ability to deal with stress, because then you have this tool to deal with your stress and regulate it and say this part of stress is helpful, because some stress is helpful and some is not. And that's really empowering, and it's an awesome tool that I've used myself, and I'm really using it a lot with my clients lately because I've just gotten really great feedback. And even for people that don't seem like super into the woo-woo, like oftentimes it's the very rational people that this exercise actually works the best with. Once you get past sort of the like weird questions, then they're like, oh, this is something that this feels more normal to me, because then I can actually rationalize my stress. So that's my tip of the day. Comment below if there's a place in your life that you think that you could apply this technique. Fear, stress, anxiety, self-doubt, any kind of limiting thoughts, and then use it with your athletes. You can do it in a group. You can do like a journal exercise thing, or you can do it one-on-one if someone's really struggling with something. And comment below and ask any questions. I love this. It's called the Thing Technique. I love this one. Okay, go get them, guys. Thanks. Bye.